Why don't we just start with the presentation of yourself? To those who are probably see you for the first time, what would you want to say about yourself? Let's start from there.
My name is Mike Uriel Ogbechie. I'm an architect by profession. I had that honor, or whatever you call it, to have been a teenager at the time the Nigerian Civil War was fought. And many years after the war, I thought I should put down my experiences, of so many things that went on at that time, which left indelible marks in my life. And I had told some of the stories, bits and pieces, to relations and friends. And I thought I should put them down, for posterity. That was really what culminated in the writing of the book, ECLIPSE at Noonday.
Thank you very much for that. Like I always do this podcast, because this podcast is about people. Everyone has a story to tell. That is, of course, a tagline. That we believe that people, every one of us, have our own version of the story. Now, let's start also with you. Let's remain there a little bit. You were young, you were very small when the Nigerian Civil War was fought. Now, before we get to the war, tell me about you. How was you, a young boy, growing up in Eastern Nigeria? What can we learn about you growing up?
Yeah, I was actually born in the northern part of the country, but still as a toddler, my parents relocated to the eastern part of the country, Port Harcourt to be very precise. Growing up in Port Harcourt was a lot of fun because we had, it was a cosmopolitan setting, and we had people from all over the country, and we had a lot of, especially West Africans, people from Ghana, people from Sierra Leone, people from the rest of the subcontinent living amongst us. And everybody felt at home. Growing up, we didn't really have any distinction between somebody coming from the north or somebody who hails from the west and all that. We all grew up, especially the children. But I would say to a large extent too, the adults, we grew up liking each other for what we were and not for where we hailed from. And everybody was his brother's keeper, went to primary school in Port Harcourt, went to secondary school, what happened to be one of the best secondary schools then, because it was an experiment by the Americans. They set up these comprehensive school. They had lecturers, professors from the University of California, Berkeley campus, set up that experiment. So I was one of those who benefited from that experiment. Hitherto, everything had been more tailored towards the British system of education. We, being a former colony of the British until Nigeria's independence in 1960. So when the Americans came with their new system of education, a lot of parents embraced it and, sent their children there. So that was how some of us became beneficiaries of that system. What was peculiar about the system was that it exposed us to a lot of things which hitherto the normal secondary schools, which were popularly known as grammar schools, did not have opportunity of learning. And that singular opportunity was actually what led me to the role I played while the war lasted. So that's the significance of having schooled in that school, the Government Comprehensive Secondary School in Port Harcourt.
Thank you very much, sir. All right, we're not going to dig deeper into those areas, though I would have really loved to, because I always like it when elderly people talk about the past. It's something very rich.
Yeah.
Is that you want to say something?
Sorry.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I want to, you are talking about not digging so much into that past. It is, very, that school and the role it played in my life, in the lives of some other young people, and the role it played as the war lasted is very significant, because the workshops of the school became arms producing center for the Biafran army. That's actually, yeah. And
that is very vital. So we're going to touch it more there.
Yes, we're going to touch it more then.
I was actually considering the time constraint, because there are different aspects of the conversation that we are going to be touching just now. Since this one touch it in that sense, then we are going to come back to it later, because we're talking of war. We're also going to talk about the weapon. In fact, I've prepared some questions I'm going to ask you there to help the people understand it. Okay, now before we get to the world situation, how did you start to write? How did you get this motivation into writing, documentation? Because you made mention of something before, that you wanted to leave something for posterity. And this is something very powerful, no? That we must leave something behind for other people who are going to come after us. I don't know, maybe 250 years from now, 500 years from now, 1,000 years from now. The only way we can do that is by documenting our passes. So how did it occur to you, this idea of documentation, of writing?
I have been very interested in literature, literary works. After the Nigerian War, people began to write books about their different experiences and all that. Even Ojukwu himself, who was the leader of the Biafran country, wrote a book too. I mean, so many people. I read, there's this author who wrote the Dogs of War. I can't remember his name now. Lately, he had something about Biafra. There were so many people. And Chimamanda Adichie, wrote something on the Biafran War. Actually, it was after I read her book, which was a work of fiction, that I decided to write my book. Because, I mean, there's a difference between fiction and non-fiction. I wanted to let people really see what the situations actually were from somebody who experienced it firsthand. I wasn't going to tell stories that would be embellished to make them, look interesting. I was going to say it as it was, from my personal experience. And of course, in some of the cases, friends and relations who had experiences, who narrated their experiences while the war lasted, and we shared our common feelings and whatever about what was going on. So somehow, all those information got ingrained in my brain. I mean, some of the things I still can't forget them. I mean, it's over 50 years now, and I still remember some of the incidents as if they happened just yesterday.